The other person could have, let's say, a red mark or a scratch. Hey everybody, this is David Kohlmeier, the problem solver. Thanks so much for joining us this week. As you can see, I got a little problem solver right over here. This is Kyle Jacob, my son. And I also have Chloe Rose joining us today. Chloe is my oldest here, Chloe Rose. Say hi, Chloe.
Hello.
And then we have Kyla June Kohlmeier over here. Say hi.
Hi.
Say, how are you today?
How are you today?
And she just turned 6, Kyla. So Kyla and Chloe, they're basically home, and they said, let's go on the problem solver. So anyway, we are all here today, family. We also have Beja Rivera, who's the co-host. Thanks, Beja, for joining us.
Yes. Happy belated birthday.
So today, even though we got the little problem solvers, that everyone's off from school, and as you can see, he's even wearing the problem solver shirt. He's going to take over the legacy of the problem solver in the future.
And if anybody needs to get a shirt for their children, we have all sizes, right? Where can they go to
the problem solver.vegas? They can get t-shirts, and money is actually donated to different nonprofits, and you can choose which nonprofit you would like to donate portions of the money to.
I mean, wow, David, what do you not do?
Everything is set up, Beja. Everything is set up here at the problem solver. Everything. Chase, the engineer, sets everything up. He does the shirts. He does the inventory. He sends out shirts.
I wish there was a cam that was set.
He does.
Okay, we need that real quick. You need that spotlight.
Chase.
Real quick.
I didn't have it set up right now. I was too busy setting up shirts.
Okay.
Oh, so Kyle, did you say hi? Say hi. You want to say hello?
Hi.
That was nice. That was cute. It was a problem solver. Hi. Okay, so we are here today. As every single week, we have the problem solver where we're trying to solve different problems and help people in the community. So I thought a few different concepts. Actually, I forgot to mention. Danny Miner, who is home, he wasn't feeling well. So let's say hi to Danny Miner, who's on the screen. Hey, Danny.
Hello.
Danny.
You forgot about me.
I forgot. Danny is one of the other co-hosts. He's home, relaxing. In about 30 minutes, he'll be in the jacuzzi, warming himself up as usual.
I mean, you're cute, but these 3 kids right here just
they're taking over.
Yeah, they're taking over.
So Danny,
At least I am cute, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I'll give you
Danny,
that.
as usual, I appreciate it. Normally, we always like you being here as well, but today we have you on Zoom. So what I wanted to do was this. A lot of kids, I figure, are home now because of summertime. And today I was working from home, making 100 different phone calls, and the kids were home. So I figured we would talk about like safety and kids, and some kids are going to camp and so on. But I guess the biggest thing is I figured this is the first time. This is actually the youngest kids that are here at Sticky Pod Studio. And the first time, actually the youngest podcasters that are in Las Vegas on a podcast. We're making history here at Sticky Pod Studio.
This is epic.
So I wanted to actually use Danny. So Danny was a cop for 27 years. I'm gonna have Danny think of some different questions that we could ask Chloe and Kyla for safety-wise of what they can do, while Kyle here is playing on the microphone here. But maybe Kyle can even answer a question as well because he's getting smart, even though he's turning. How old are you turning, Kyle?
4.
He's turning 4 soon, right? Okay, so Kyle, we're gonna ask you some questions too, okay? Because he knows how to answer some questions. Anyway, so Danny's gonna think of some different questions. Being a cop for 27 years, maybe Beja's gonna ask some questions. But today I wanted to share a story to see what other people say. So here's the question for Chloe and Kyla. So today we were home and I was working from home, making some phone calls. Long story short, someone came to the front of the door and rang the doorbell. And so Chloe, tell us what happened.
Kyla answered the door. She looked in the door and she said, "There's a strange man here." But what would you do if there's a strange man at your door?
So I guess that's the question. So Kyla actually was over at the door, and she kind of froze up a little bit, right? Kyla, tell us a little bit what you thought. What happened?
So I was by the door, and then I heard the doorbell. I went there. I didn't open the door because it was a stranger. So I just looked on the other door, on the other window, and then Daddy's went to the door.
Okay. So what should you normally do? Like let's say I was upstairs and you guys were downstairs. What should you do normally if your daddy or mommy weren't downstairs?
I will go upstairs and tell Daddy to come downstairs.
And what happens if the person was at the door? Is like, hey, can you come here? Can you open up the door? Like, what would you say? Because he's looking at you because he can see you through the front door through the glass. If he's like, hey, just open the door, what would you say?
No.
Why not? You seem like a nice guy.
Yeah, but it's a stranger.
Okay. So if strangers, we don't open the door, right?
Also, you could always look at their shirts because they might have uniforms, and you could tell if they're from a company or what do they want from you.
I still believe that it's a stranger. It's somebody that you do not know. Still do not open the door. And yes, go to an adult, your parents, anybody else in the family.
So here's a question for you. So let's say you see a police officer that you think's at the door, and you're not really sure because you don't know the different police badges or uniforms, but he looks like a police officer. And he's like, hey, can you open the door? What would you do?
Not open the door.
But why? He looks like a friendly police officer or a fireman.
But it's still a stranger.
Good point. Very good point.
That's right.
So the bottom line is we always get our parents in the home. So hopefully we have some other children that are listening, or we can have other parents show this video. So the thing is, if it's a stranger we don't know, you get with your parents. Now, what happens if there's an emergency in the home? Do you guys know what number to call if there's an emergency?
911.
What happens when you call 911?
The police come. Well, it's not only the police. It's a medical, it's fire department, and police officers. They all three come.
Okay. And do you guys know your address? If someone, sometimes they don't know who you are. If you're calling from a cell phone, they may not know where you live. Do you know your address?
Las Vegas, Nevada, 2988 Sun Lake Drive.
Okay, so we got to make sure that you know your home address.
Yeah, let's
Well, it's live, so there you go.
These days on the internet, everybody can find anybody in general. So, but the biggest thing is that they know the address in general, right?
Correct. And do you guys have your parents' numbers memorized as well?
Do you know?
In case you get lost. You don't have to say it, but do you?
Yes.
Okay, good. So it's important for all of you guys to know that.
Do you know the phone number? What number would you call? Kyle, what phone number would you call? He doesn't know the number. He's too young. Chloe, what number would you call?
I would call.
We have a lot of different phone numbers that we talk about in the home. So what number would you think you would call?
I would call 911 or my parents' numbers.
But how would you? Okay, so on the phones, right? How would you know what number?
You could make like a funny way how to remember it.
Okay. Do you know the phone numbers? Most people these days, right? Basically, like they look, it says dad, mom, right? People just don't even know phone numbers. Or they could technically say, hey, Siri, right? Call, hey, Siri, hey, Alexa, call mom, right? Call dad, right? And if it's programmed, it would call mom or dad, right? Because you may not know the phone number. What phone number would you call if you had to call me? What number's in your head? What phone numbers does daddy always talk about? Do you know any numbers? You don't know. Okay. I think these days, actually, I think people that should be trained like, hey, Alexa, hey, Siri, call mom, call dad. Mm-hmm. I think it should be set up in the house.
Super helpful.
Because it's easy because they don't remember numbers. And even myself, I don't remember anyone's numbers these days unless it's on the phone.
And then with the whole reason why I got my daughter a phone, the whole school system, I think we talked about this on the last podcast. Anyways, point is she has a phone. I think if you click the home button about 5 times, it automatically calls the emergency line, 911.
I think the key with it is,
that's another thing
do you train her to do that though?
She knows it.
She knows how to do it? Okay. Mm-hmm. Also, it makes also like an alarm as well with the iPhone.
I wish I would have known that you were bringing your children. I would have brought my little baby girl.
Next time we'll have to have her on the show.
Hell yeah.
All right, let me take back this head. Kyle, let me see over here. All right, Danny, any questions you could think of? Hey.
Yeah.
Kyle, go ahead. Look at the video, guys. Look at the video for Danny.
The only thing that I would say would be school is very important. I remember I used to walk home from school, and sometimes my mom would come when it was raining, or she would send somebody for me to pick me up. My question to the kids would be, if somebody came to you and said, hey, your dad and mom can't come for you today, they sent me to pick you up, I'm going to take you home to your address, I'm their friend Jim, or I'm their friend Susan, and hop in the car with me, what would the kids say?
You can make up a password, like a password to remember, like, we have a password.
Good, don't say it.
If you give the password, we have to change the password.
Yeah.
What's the password?
Diamond.
Diamond, okay. So we're going to have to change the password today. All right, so Diamond was the password. So if somebody came up to you and say, hey.
Like, what's the password? And if they get it wrong, you have to run away. Because you should always know that password.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you're right. That's what my mom did for me. And I grew up in the 80s. And she would always tell me, here's the password. If I send somebody to pick you up, they got to know the password.
So the key would be to run or to tell somebody like in school or, right? You got to be really careful. Kyla, what are your thoughts? Password too? Did you know it was Diamond?
Yes.
Okay, so what would you do if someone came up to you and said, hey, your mom said I should come pick you up from school today. It's okay.
You should, before you say what's the password, you should always look at the person and see if you remember who it is.
Okay. So if they look familiar to you, right? That's a good one. You know, they used to always say, Danny, right, as well, that people would come up to you and they would say, oh, look, I have this really cute dog. Do you like dogs? So come over here, you know. I want to show you my poodle, right? And then someone could take you away. So you got to be really, really careful. Sometimes people that are strangers, that are not good people, they'll tempt you to do something you don't want to do. But they may use a dog or an animal or a cat, right? Come on over here, little girl. Look, there's a doggy over here, right? And the bottom line is you've seen enough dogs. You don't need to see another dog, right?
Yeah.
But you know. Basically, you have to run and you tell someone you love, or you go to the police officers, or you go to your school, your teachers, people that you know, right?
Or you could scream for help.
Beja, Danny, any other questions for the kids? Come over here. This guy's wearing the girl's thing here.
Yeah.
Dave,
It's
one
trendy.
thing that I feel is very important, and I teach this in crime prevention for adults, not just kids.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody grabs one of the kids and they're trying to get him in a car or something, the moment of screaming, fighting, yelling fire, you got to do whatever you can do. Lay down on the ground, start kicking and screaming, start yelling. You got to draw attention to yourself. So if anybody ever grabs you, fall to the ground, start screaming, draw attention to yourself. That's the most important thing.
Okay. Chloe and Kyla, anything that you want to add? Do you want to add any other tips to other kids at all? Chloe, can you think of any other tips that you want to share with other kids about anything?
A young kid should always go with an adult. You could have like a chain on them connected to an adult so they don't run away or get distracted by anything.
What kind of chain?
Like just like a rubber chain that's like hard that can like two wristbands connected to an adult and a kid.
That's if you're a young kid, they have those things. Like if you're a baby, maybe like someone like Kyle, they have like a little bracelet on them with like a little rope, like a little doggy. This is what Kyle needs. Kyla, what do you think? You want to share anything that you learned from school this year? So they just finished school on Wednesday, so now they're on a break for about 2.5 weeks. Then they're going to go to camp. Kyla, anything that you want to learn, that you want to share with us, what you learned from school this last year? Chloe, anything you can think of? About being a good person or...
You could always, wherever you are, make sure, like before you go anywhere, make sure there's like someone, not like even a stranger, like you like tell by the person, like even though like when you go somewhere, make sure like a person would maybe help you if you get like if you can't run or anywhere, and if they grab you or something.
So to do what?
Like if they take you, someone would like if you look by the personality, and if they come next to you and like say to the stranger like get off, back off, I'm gonna call 911.
So scream?
Yeah.
Scream, yell.
Make all of that
Make a lot of noise?
noise, yeah.
You got to make sure, it doesn't matter how old you are, that if someone tries to take you, which is kind of very, very scary, to make sure that you scream, you run away, you do everything possible to get away. You have to be very, very strong, right? You cannot be scared, right? It's a lot of it's in your brain. So you got to be very, very strong in your mind and your brain, and you need to take action right away, especially if you do not know the person and you feel scared, right? Today, actually, with Kyla, when she saw the guy at the door, she kind of froze up a little bit. And sometimes when you freeze up, you got to think about yourself, what you need to do next, right? Sometimes it gets scary. So it happens to everybody in general, even adults, not just kids as well. So we need to be in a mental mindset. And I'm sure Danny, what are your thoughts about mental mindset, whether you're an adult or a child, to put yourself in that mental mind of state to get yourself out of a bad situation?
That's the thing, Dave. You got to prepare for everything. I was talking about the kids like laying on the ground screaming. I tell adults the same thing. Just give you an example. Say, you're pulling a parking lot. You have the kids in the car, and somebody jumps in the car with you, puts a gun to your side, right? You have to be in that mindset at that time. I got to survive. I got to do whatever I can to survive. And what I tell people is, of course, not at 100 miles an hour, but you got to draw attention to yourself. You got to sideswipe a car. You got to do something. Hit a parked car. You can apologize later. You have to draw attention to yourself because people are not taking you and dropping you off somewhere. People are taking you for a bad reason. You are not going to survive that. The odds of surviving that are very, very low. Your chances of survival are fight right then and there. And you have to draw attention to yourself.
No, it's a very, very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, so anything else besides you guys? You guys did amazing today by being on the show. We're going to talk about two other serious topics in general that I want to talk about, for other people maybe listening in general. You guys can hang out and listen here, but be really, really quiet, especially Kyle. You guys can hang out on the floor. If you want to have a drink, that's fine. But we're going to talk about some serious topics. Okay, Kyle? All right? So if you want to sit over here, it's fine. If you want to listen, you can sit here as well, okay? Okay, so what I wanted to bring up two serious topics. First of all, there's different numbers that are out there like 911, which is the police. There's 311, which is the non-emergency number. There's other numbers that are basically out there. And there's a new one that I just heard of, which I'm sure nobody has heard of it. It happened to pop up on the news. There is a new number, and I'm not so big with this particular number. I love vanity numbers, but the number is 988. And 988 is like 911 or 311, but it is a number for National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Now, personally, I just don't think people are going to really remember this number. I think it's a tough number. I think people really, they like, 911 is different, but if it was like 999, would be a lot better. So it's going to take a lot to market this number for people to know. A lot of people don't even know there's a number 211, which is United Way for helping people for social services. Most people do not know this. It's been going on. I think about 15 years I've been talking about 211. 211 is United Way, but it's basically social services. That if you're homeless, you need a place to stay. If you need anything whatsoever, like you need a bus pass. You lost your driver's license. Whatever it may be, any type of help is 211. Not calling 311, not calling 911. So this one, I'm going to read this. This is the first time I'm actually reading it. I just printed it out. It says, why do we need 988? America is experiencing a mental health crisis, but the crisis is not irreversible. The suicide rate has climbed nearly 30% since 1999, and the rate has increased in 49 out of 50 states over the last decade. From 2000 to 2016 to 17 alone, there was a 10% increase. Approximately 1 in 5 people of the age of 12 has a mental health condition in the U.S. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people and the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S. More Americans died from mental health crisis and substance abuse in 2018 alone than have died in combat in every war combined since World War II. However, suicide is the most often preventable. For every person who died by suicide, there are 280 people who seriously considered suicide but not kill themselves. Over 90% of people who attempt suicide go on to live out their lives. So long story short, 988, direct 3-digit line to be trained National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. These are counselors that are waiting. Will open the door for millions of Americans to seek the help they need, sending the message to the country that healing, hope, and help are happening every single day. 2020 Lifeline received nearly 2.4 million phone calls. Easy to remember numbers with the stating 988. The Lifeline hopes to reach many, many more people in emotional crisis. The one thing I'll share is this, as Kyle is jumping on over here, is that I think that recently these active shooters, and you can tell me what you think, Danny and Beja, that a lot of people, these young kids with these shooting situations, these 18-year-olds, a lot of it has to do with mental health. So whether you're calling 911, which is the emergency number if there's suspicious activity, or 311, the non-emergency number to share to police about someone next door that has mental health issues, people that are actually suffering mental health issues, they can call 988, which is active right now. Danny, your thoughts in regards to these active shooter situations in regards to mental health in general?
Yeah, well, Dave, suicide prevention is so big. I mean, I've been to more suicides, and I'm sure you have, than homicides. I mean, quadruple. I mean, especially around Christmas time, I knew we were going to have 3 or 4 suicides around Christmas time. That's how sad it is. People get depressed around Christmas time. Right now, people are broke in America. They can't afford gas. The food prices are out of control. The rent prices are out of control. People, they got to decide, are they going to pay their rent? Are they going to pay their food? So this is a very vulnerable time for Americans. And yes, I believe that mental health is the biggest problem with these school shootings. I believe we have to take mental health more serious in this country, and we got to give people help when they need it. Definitely.
So the bottom line is the number is 988, and someone that's feeling depressed or upset, they can call the number. I've not called the number. It's interesting because sometimes with these new numbers, I'm just curious right now. If I call the number for my cell phone, let's see how it works.
You're calling.
When it tested
You
out.
have reached the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, also servicing the Veterans Crisis Line. If you are in emotional distress or suicidal crisis or concerned about someone who might be, we're here to help. Para español, oprime el número 2. If you are a U.S. military veteran or current service member or are calling about one, please press 1 now to speak with the Veterans Crisis Line. Otherwise, please remain on the line while we route your call to the nearest crisis center in our network.
I think it's good just to hear it, to test out, which is pretty good that they're trying to help like veterans.
Your call may be
With the
monitored and
PTSD
recorded for quality
and all.
assurance purposes.
It'd be interesting right now to, see how long it takes, but it'd be interesting to say, like, if I know someone that, wants to commit suicide, what do you guys do?
Please stay on the line while your call is directed to an available responder.
You know what I'm saying, Danny, that if I'm like, hey, my friend John, I think he's suicidal, I have his phone number, like, what do they do? I mean, would they notify the police or?
Right. I was going to go over that too.
Normally with the police, right? But this is something different.
Yeah.
How may I help you?
Yeah, my name is David Kohlmeier. I was just trying to see about this phone number to see how it works. If I know someone that, is feeling depressed or upset and suicidal, if I give you the name and number, like what do you guys specifically do to help people?
Well, it really depends. I mean, if it's a third party, we just, we kind of talk through it with, like you, if you're calling on behalf of a friend or if it's the person who's actually struggling with the situation, then we walk them through, sometimes we do some grounding exercises and get them kind of to calm down, and then hopefully they open up and we can just, open up that dialogue and kind of start talking with them.
So if I have the name and number of a person that's like suicidal, would you guys call them and say, hey, like, your friend Dave said I should give you a call? Like, how does that work?
No, we don't. We don't make third-party calls. We have to have consent in order to call somebody out from this line. So
I could do like a
without that
three-way call. Like I
consent,
could.
we're unable to do that.
So I can call my friend.
What's that?
So I could call my friend, do a three-way call, and say, hey, I'm on the phone, my friend John, and he's not feeling well, and then you guys can talk with him.
Yes, if you did that and you called us and it was a three-way conversation, then yes, we could do that. But we couldn't call them.
Got it. Okay. Is
So
there anything?
absolutely. So
And how long is
or
nine?
They could, or that you can always, if you can encourage them to call, or you call and pass the phone to them. I've had that happen before. So there's a lot of different ways that we can communicate with them.
And how long's
We
988?
also have a text line too.
Okay. How long's 988 been around in the state of Nevada? Is it something brand new or?
988 it's very new. It's very new at this moment.
Got it.
So it's just kind of starting to get underway.
Got it. Well, I appreciate your time so much. Like I said, we were just trying to check it out. Thank you so much for what you do, okay?
Is the text line the same as the phone
Sure,
line?
absolutely. Thank you so much.
Quick question. One of my friends just asked, is the text number the same or is it different? How do you text?
The text number is actually different. So let me see. The text line, you can text CARE, so CARE,
Okay.
to the 839-863 number,
Okay.
and that's going to be the lifeline number.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you do.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a good day. By the way, it's interesting. Like, they just said text this number. Like, who's remembering that number? Like, I think it's great to have a number 988. You just got to market that number to the community, or 911 probably, or 311 probably will share that number to other people. But
Like
she just,
888
what was this number? She
suicide.
said text care. I think people get lost with that, right?
Yeah, I didn't even get like a phone number.
Yeah,
Is
like
it 839-863?
That's why I think it's so
we'll figure
important to have
that
these
out.
vanity phone numbers, like, so you could remember it in general. All right, Danny, anything else you want to add about 988? At least we just educating the public about it, and something new that we learned, at least we can promote it.
Yeah, I do want to add to this, and it's going to go back to the school shootings. Here's the thing. Like, if a family member thinks somebody in their family is homicidal or suicidal, and that's one thing. Somebody that's suicidal could also be homicide. Okay, that's something definitely I learned through my career in police work. Say you have somebody in your family, they're saying crazy things, they're mad at the world, and you just feel that they are an endanger to the public. What should you do? Now, I'm going to go back to, because Pennsylvania, I know Pennsylvania a lot better. I'm sure Nevada's the same way. Anybody that's a legal family member, so, mother, father, sister, brother, wife, husband, they can go to mental health and actually get a warrant to have that person evaluated. And that is very important, because at least you're going to get them in front of a professional, mental health professional. A lot of people don't want to do that to their loved ones because they feel there's going to be some kind of like mental thing on their record or something, and they're afraid to do it. But I think at this point in time, if we feel somebody in our family is an endanger themselves or others, we have to get them help. We see what's going on in this world, and we have to do it. And I know it's tough.
All right, so I appreciate that. Beja, any other thoughts? I mean, I think we just got to just tell people about the number when it comes up, and help the community, like market it a little bit, so people know. Or most people can say it's going to take 10, 20 years for people to really know this number,
Yeah, no, really, I'm just glad that we're talking about it. I feel like this is pretty new to everyone. A lot of people didn't know what anxiety or depression was. Traditional things in the family, I think everybody just swept everything under the rug. Or if you were a man that was depressed or had anxiety, it was kind of like a toughen up, boss up, get over it kind of thing, and they don't understand how serious it is. So I'm just glad that, even though it's new, that it's being talked about. The part about caring about your loved ones and not wanting them to get in trouble, or, just all of that is just something to really think about. I think with it being new, there needs to be a whole procedure about it, and it needs to be more more information on it, so that people are more educated about how to go on and move forward, and if you're really concerned about a loved one or a friend. Okay. If that makes sense.
No, absolutely. So we'll get the awareness out there. All right, so next topic we're going to talk about, which is one of the big topics today, is, what we're going to do is this. We're going to showcase, coming up Monday is actually the 56th anniversary of Miranda rights. And there was a video about 3 years ago, this is prior to COVID, when I was on Morning Blend with another attorney, Ryan Helmick. I wanted to play the Morning Blend video, which it kind of talks about Miranda. Now, 3 years ago was the 53rd anniversary, so now it's 3 years later. So it's coming up this Monday, June 7th. So, as being a retired police officer myself and Danny Miner, I think, it's interesting we talk about Miranda rights because, myself, Danny, and I, even though we worked with criminal defense law firms and regular law firms as well, we're very pro-justice system. We're actually advocate for lawyers, and we're advocate for people, and we're advocate for the justice system. So there's nothing wrong with talking about Miranda rights and people knowing the law. Would you agree, Danny?
I totally agree with you. The Miranda warning separates us from other countries. Other countries will put you in a room and interrogate you, beat you, whatever, to get the confession out of you. Miranda separates us from other countries. That's how I feel.
I completely agree.
Yep.
So let's play the video. It's myself. It's when I was working inside the Defenders Law Firm, which is downtown on 4th Street, where I was the Director of Client Relations at the time. And Ryan Helmick was a senior attorney. He starts talking about, so let's play the video real quickly, and it talks about it in general, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. And again, it's coming up this Monday, is the 56th anniversary. Let's play the video.
They have to be read their rights to remain silent and the right to have an attorney present. Before Miranda, I thought of an analogy earlier. Basically, it's like being in a boxing ring and allowing low blows. Yeah. Okay, so Miranda prevents low blows, so to speak. Okay, so it's a protection that works all across the board. And it's a very important protection that I think people have to understand, and it's there for everybody.
Absolutely. So, well, exactly what are your thoughts on the Miranda warning in general? I mean, they're very important for the end user there. Do you think that a person should stay silent in case they are arrested? What's your belief?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is that police officers are trained to get the information that they need from a person or that they want to extract from a person. And regardless of whether that person is innocent or guilty, they should at least consult with a lawyer first. That's the right thing to do, and then proceed from that part.
And we know this is true because David, retired police officer.
Correct.
So tell us about you. I mean, your thoughts on the Miranda rights and how this worked in your profession.
I mean, basically, I was a police officer for 17 years in law enforcement, New York City, and actually in Henderson. And I think it's really important that people need to know their Miranda rights. A lot of people do not know the laws, especially the new generation. You know, they don't know Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, Bill of Rights, the Constitution. They don't know about that stuff. So I think it's really important for people to know their rights. And, you know, like police officers have a job to do in general, to protect us in general. But the bottom line is most people do not know their rights, and they need to be educated a little bit. And today is that kind of the anniversary of that decision back in 1966, and it helps people today. And everyone should know their rights. And I'm very pro-attorney in regards to that. If you have a problem, that you need to reach out to, you know, a law firm that basically knows what they're doing to educate you through the process. The justice system is not perfect whatsoever, and I do say that you have to survive the justice system one way or the other, whether it's an accident or if you're arrested. And I just think that you need someone to guide you through the process. So I think it's really important. And I think today, basically, is the anniversary, knowing that Miranda rights and the warning basically is still important today. You know, from back in 1963 when the incident happened, and 1966 was the decision. So I think today we all are, protected. Our liberties are protected because of this, extra right that we have.
See, I can see how great it is for the defenders to have you working alongside with them. You're bringing this whole different perspective to the clients and to the attorneys, I would imagine, in the firm. So what is your role working one-on-one with folks at the law firm?
So basically, I'm a liaison between the clients and between the attorneys. So, a lot of times the attorneys are busy in the courtroom, in the morning and the afternoon, and basically they need help. They need guidance in general, and people are upset. A lot of times people are coming to the office at their worst times, and they're crying, they're upset, they need help, they have no clue what to do for their family member that's been arrested. And there are a lot of people that do make false allegations. We deal with it every single day. Ryan and I and the other attorneys meet with people, and basically they're saying how this person made a false allegation. I didn't do it. The police are calling me. I don't know what to do. Can you help? And the bottom line is the attorneys are amazing at the firm. I'm proud to be part of the defenders and Richard Harris of the firm. And I believe that people need to protect their rights, protect themselves. And whatever we can do, we help as much as possible, whether it's, getting people back up and running, getting a job or getting housing, like whatever we need to help people, because especially tourists. Tourists come to town, they get stranded. They lose their passport, they don't have ID, they can't get into a hotel room.
Oh, sure.
So things happen, and the bottom line is we're here to help, and I'm trying to go above and beyond to help for customer service, client relations, but the attorneys are the ones that go to court and basically make things. So yeah, that was a video that was on a few years ago, just talking about Miranda rights when we were on TV on Morning Blend. So it's a good little video. I got a few
little round of applause.
A few little round of applause there.
Yeah, okay, just me.
My kids are desensitized because I'm kind of on TV a lot. So like, this is just daddy's on TV again. It's like no big deal.
No, I think it's really important for everyone to know their rights.
So long story short, what I want to do is read something real quickly about Miranda rights, just so people understand it in general. Kyle, come over here. Sit here. I'm gonna read you a little story. That's not really that exciting. Say hi. You're gonna be a good boy today. I think he's losing it. We're losing the little mini problem solver here, right? Okay, Kyle, I'm gonna read you a bedtime story because this is not that exciting. You ready? Are you ready for the story? Okay, here's the story. It says, so I'm gonna read this because I think it's important. Ernesto Miranda had signed a confession and was convicted. Upon review of the case, the ACLU discovered that he had not been adequately informed of his rights and challenged the state of Arizona's conviction against Miranda. After numerous appeals, the case was argued in front of the Supreme Court, which overturned Miranda's original conviction and created guidelines to be followed by each state to inform detainees of their legal rights. This landmark decision emphasized the importance of the Fifth and Sixth Amendments of the United States Constitution. The Miranda opinion, written by Chief Justice Earl Warren, a former prosecutor and attorney, commitment to protecting criminal rights. Warren declared that the police intimidation threatens human dignity, and the best way to preserve it is not through the Fifth or Sixth Amendment rights alone, but through a marriage of the two. The Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination by a Sixth Amendment right to a lawyer to protect the privilege. The now well-known ruling created the following statements customarily given by police to criminal suspects in custody, which is the full Miranda rights. So the rights are the following. You have the right to remain silent. Anything that you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Do you understand your rights? I have just read to you. With these rights in mind, do you wish to speak to me? So these are the Miranda rights. And one of the things that we're doing is also with the Miranda rights, we're also going to be giving out Miranda rights cards, which most people don't have these type of cards, but it's something that we're just doing to basically educate people. They can have it in their wallet so they understand their rights in general, because a lot of people just don't know about it. But tell us, Danny, tell us a little about your thoughts about Miranda rights, and tell us one of your stories, because you were a cop for 27 years, and Beja never heard this story, and I know about it because you've told me this before, and then we'll get Beja's side of you in regards to when the police, if they come talk with you. But tell us a little about your thoughts.
Okay. Well, the first thing, my thoughts on the Miranda warnings is, and this is going to be a shock to a lot of people that are not police officers, but when we bring somebody in and we read the Miranda warnings, I would say 97% of the people still talk to us. I would say only 3%. I would bet you in my time being a detective, and I was a detective for 14 years, I would say 2 people didn't talk to me. I would say only 2 people. Most people will waive their rights, even if they know they did it, even if they know they're involved. They always think that if they talk, they're going to get out of it, that the cop's going to think they didn't do it because they talked. So I'm going to say 97% of the people will talk to the police. What do you feel, Dave?
In New York City, when I was a police officer there, people would never speak to the police. It's just kind of a known thing. Now, I happen to work in an urban community, and no one really spoke to the police. Now, maybe once the detective would, grab some people in general for a major case, maybe things would be a little bit different there. But on the streets, at least in Brooklyn, no one was talking to the police. In Henderson, I used to laugh because when you would stop people in Henderson, Las Vegas, it seemed like everyone would speak. They would just, I killed the guy. He's in the trunk or something like that. They would say some unusual stuff. So out here, I felt it was much easier because in New York City, nobody was talking to the police. But out here, it seemed like, I don't know, they just seemed like they would speak. So what are your thoughts in regards? So you're a cop for 27 years. I mean, and someone, if a police officer is knocking on your door to investigate a situation, you're pro-police, right? You're pro-justice system. What are your thoughts in regards to speaking to the police? I mean, your honest opinion.
My honest opinion, if I was talking to my kids, my family, this and that, if they're being accused of something or they feel they're being accused of something, or they're not just a witness, but they might have had some kind of involvement, I would say, and a lot of the police officers aren't going to like me for this, but I would say don't talk to the police. Well, I would get an attorney with you. That's what I would say.
It's interesting because we both are very similar because we worked in law firms, and we are pro police, we are pro justice system. We're also pro Miranda rights, right? Right. I actually think it's good, right? Because people get confused and intimidated by a police officer in general, by their uniform, about how they speak to you in general like that. And, it's great if you're a police officer and that's your job is to get people to talk, right? But the bottom line is that if you're the person and there's allegations, you have the right to an attorney. You have the right not to speak. And what's so wrong about knowing your rights? Like if there was any cop that listened to this, if there's a police officer that's investigating you, which sometimes that may happen, why would you not want your rights to be protected,
it's like
right?
A fair fight.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Like when I was a detective, if I called somebody on the phone, I would say, "Hey, Joe, we just want to talk to you. Could you come on in? It's no big deal. We just want to hear your side of the story." 90% of the time, Joe's going to come in, and which is very shocking. And he doesn't come in with an attorney. My recommendation to family members would be get an attorney and don't speak to the police without an attorney, without a doubt.
What if you're not able to get one?
One will be appointed to, if you can't afford one will be appointed to you.
Yes, it says that. Do you think?
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, what would happen is you'd have to apply for the public defender. Then they'd come and do the interview with the police with you. Now I've had attorneys come to the interviews, you know, and they actually didn't go too bad. You know what I mean? The attorney actually sat in the interview. I've had that. Dave, have you had that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, you know, I was more community policing and patrol. I mean, most of the times attorneys would not want you to speak to, it kind of got shut down in regards to the conversation. Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is I just think that you have the right to representation. It's very, very simple. I think the Miranda rights helps it, you know, helps people understand their rights in general, and I think that it should be read. Most people will say, though, they'll say, oh, I was stopped by the police or I got arrested. They never read me my Miranda. What, Danny, what's your thoughts with that one?
That was going to be my question.
Most people always say that, right? That officer, you arrested me for DUI. He never read my Miranda rights. Never.
Here's the thing about that. A lot of people think, oh, I'm getting off. I'm not gonna be arrested now because they forgot to read me my rights. That is not true. You have to be being asked interrogated questions. Okay, so once somebody gets arrested, say you put them in the back of the car, and then you start asking them like, hey, so how much did you have to drink? How much this? How much that? Of course, they're in custody. Okay, so they're in custody. Once they're in custody, you have to read them their Miranda warnings. Now, if I come up to the driver's side and they said, oh, Beja, were you drinking tonight? And you said, yeah, I had a couple. At that point, I don't have to read you your rights. You're not in custody. You feel you have the right to go. But once I take you in custody and you're arrested for DUI, now I have to read you your rights. If I'm going to ask you questions, if I don't ask you any questions, I don't have to. And a lot of people think, oh, my God, they didn't read me my rights. I'm going to get off. If they didn't read you your rights and you made some incriminating statements, that incriminating statements will be suppressed and will not be used against you. You are not going to get off. That statement you made is just going to go away, if that makes sense.
What's interesting, I always feel, is that the DUI, like when you get stopped by the police officer and they ask you those initial questions, and there's a bunch of questions they ask you because they're investigative questions. I mean, right. you still have the right to remain silent. You don't have to ask those questions. They ask you, how many drinks have you had? How much food have you had? Right? You could just say, you know, I basically would like to have an attorney present. I'd like to not speak. You know, I have the right. Now, the problem with it is, I always say this is a weird situation. So if you've been drinking, like you may get arrested, but when your blood and breath come back and you're not, you don't come back like under the influence, then you'll be okay, but you're still going to get arrested. Your car may get towed and stuff like that. If you go through the test and you're fine, you're going to be released and you're going to go. So it's kind of the problem. It's like if you basically have something in your system and you're going to fail, you're probably better off not saying anything and not, you know. So, but it's one of the things that if you're really fine and you haven't been drinking and you haven't been doing any drugs, then okay, no big deal to do some tests and ask some questions. But if you have something in your system, you know, it's why are you going to talk about it, right, Danny? Right. And you know what, I just want to tell you a quick story, and I'm going to keep it very polite here because the kids are there. But we had a search warrant and an arrest warrant for a guy. He was involved with minors, and I'm going to keep it at that. And when we did the search warrant on his house, we, you know, of course, knocked, came in, start the search warrant. We put him on the couch. We put him in handcuffs. Nobody read this man his rights at that point. We just hurried up. We got in the door because we had to do a search warrant. We put him in handcuffs, put him on the couch. Guys are searching the kitchen, and we were looking for this paddle. And it was maybe about a foot or two long, and it was supposed to be in the kitchen, and we had a search warrant for it. One of the officers found the paddle. When the officer reached up for it and grabbed the paddle, the guy who we had in custody stood up and said, oh, we used to play a game with that paddle. That's what we did. We used to play a game with that paddle. And we came to court. Now, he was not read his rights, and he bursted this statement out. That is called a res gesti statement. That will be used against him because we didn't ask him any questions. He blurted that out. And that statement can be used no matter what, even if his rights were read to him.
Okay. And then again, because I'm sure this has happened before, if no incriminating statements were made and the police officer did not read the person their rights, what is the following consequences after that? Because from what I heard, I mean, their whole case can get dropped, dismissed, waived, whatever.
No, that's false. No, that's false.
Everyone always thinks that in general, but the bottom line is when you get pulled over.
So you don't say anything. Okay. Well, they don't read you your rights. You're in jail.
Well, here's the story.
They ask you, have you been read your rights? They say no. Would you like to go to trial, or what would
the judge will read you your rights during your arraignment?
Okay, so let's just
when you get arraigned on the charge.
So let's re-clarify the situation. So the bottom line is, if you're stopped by the police for DUI, whatever it may be in general. It's up to you if you want to speak, right? You have the right to remain silent. You could say, officer, I like to remain silent. You could still provide your license, registration, insurance. Whatever he does with you from there, if you get arrested and so on, that's it just, at least you're not speaking. If you have nothing in your system, and you're driving, and they ask you some questions, and you take a test, DU test in general, you pass it, they're going to be let go, and you're going to leave. But you don't have to speak to the police at any point in time. You will have to share your license, registration, insurance to people, but you can get arrested.
And you don't have to take a test right then and there.
Well, the bottom line is if they're going to ask you to take a test, and if they feel from your driving pattern or from your eyes or from your speech pattern, if they feel they have enough and you basically refuse, they can take you to jail for DUI. The question is whether or not you truly DUI through your blood or through your breath. And they're going to have to articulate those facts in order to make that arrest.
So
right?
that's regarding a DUI. So say it was another type of situation.
Okay, so let's just say it's domestic battery or an allegation, whatever it may be. You don't have to speak to the police, but if you are not free to leave, that's why people say, people on social media, they don't ask the right questions. It's more like, am I free to leave, right? And they say, no, you're not free to leave. That means you're in custody. Then they have to read your Miranda rights, right? And they have to remind you of your Miranda. So if someone comes to the police station and they say, by the way, you're here, imagine this was a police station and say, hey, you're here on your own free will, and I really appreciate you coming and speaking to me. Tell me what happened, right? Because I just told you were free to leave. You can leave at any time that you want.
I just don't feel like my answer.
The door is open, and I appreciate you coming to the station. Tell me what happened. And then maybe like, well, the bottom is you could just speak. Now, if you say like, well, am I under investigation? And I would say, well, we're investigating this in general. But again, I really appreciate you speaking. And then you just start speaking, you speak, right? But if you're like, well, do I need a lawyer? Like, you have the right to a lawyer, I could read the Miranda rights as well. So again, it's really, you have to be educated about the law in general. And you have to know that you have the right to an attorney. You have the right not to speak without an attorney present with you. So it just depends upon your situation, what you have. If you're a victim of a crime, in some regards, like what's the big deal about Miranda if you're a victim of a crime? If you committed a crime, then you may really want to know your Miranda rights, right?
Right. I'm just saying, because you could be guilty, you could not be guilty, who knows? You're not speaking about it. I just don't feel like I really got an answer to my question. What are the consequences when a police officer does not read you your rights?
Again, the consequences is the following. Listen carefully to this.
If there's no incriminating statements,
the bottom line is you don't have to read the rights unless you're in custody and not free to leave. Then you have to read Miranda rights. Okay. But if the door is open here, right? Yeah. And I say you could basically you can leave at any time. Okay. You want to talk to me, right? Okay. You don't have to read Miranda rights.
I know
it's
someone.
Only if you say that you're under. If I say to you like, look, you're under investigation for a murder, and you're sitting here right now. I really appreciate you talking about the murder, but you could free to leave at any time. Mm-hmm. Do you mind talking to me about the murder case?
I don't think that was the situation. I'm just saying I do have a friend who was arrested, was not read their rights, did show up to the jail and all.
Okay, so the question is this. They call it the fruits of the poisonous tree, which means if I don't read you Miranda rights and you're in custody, right, and I start questioning you, then everything from that point on can be thrown out. It's called like fruits of the poisonous tree. Like it's a bad tree, you know what I'm saying? Like, but the thing with it is, if you get arrested for, let's just say, domestic battery or a drug crime, whatever it may be, I don't have to talk to you. I don't have to ask you questions. You were arrested, right? Okay. Unless we start talking about your case and blah, 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 then you'd have to read Miranda rights unless they feel that they're okay with not reading Miranda rights. Like, would you like me to read Miranda rights?
Would you like to go to trial and they decide not to? Well,
trial is different, okay? Because when you're on the street with a police officer is not talking about trial. They're talking about, hey, do you want an attorney? Do you want to speak to me? Do you feel okay, right? If you read the Miranda rights, it says nothing about trial. Mm-hmm. When you go to court, that's a different situation. If you want to basically go to trial, or if there's negotiations, like that's a different aspect. I'm trying to answer your question, Danny. Is there a better way that you feel that you can answer?
Can explain it? Yeah.
Yeah, Beja, you will understand this. I got the way to make you understand it.
Okay.
Say there's an incident and there's like 20 people around. Okay. And somebody got injured. Somebody was assaulted very badly, went to the hospital, all of that 9 yards. The cops really don't know who assaulted him. They're going to interview 20 people. And Beja, you're one of the people. So I bring you in, Beja, and I say to you, hey, listen, thank you for coming in. We're trying to find out what's going on. I just want you to know, Beja, you are not under arrest. You are free to leave. The door's going to stay open the whole time. You could leave. You could leave right now if you want to. But I appreciate you coming in because we want to solve this crime. now, Beja, as I'm talking to you, you start telling me stuff that only the suspect who did the assault would have done, and you start incriminating yourself. The minute I feel Beja's now incriminating herself as a law enforcement officer, I got to say, hold on right there. And now I got to start reading you your rights, because now you became a suspect. Through the interview, you became a suspect, and I have to read you your rights. So if you're just a witness and the cops are trying to put it all together, they could bring you in and not read you your rights. But once in that interview, if you start becoming the suspect, the cop got to stop and read you your rights. Does that kind of make sense?
No, I totally got that part, Danny. So thank you for reiterating that. The point was, had there been no incriminating statements, just kind of how that would look. But I understand that part. I guess this could be another topic for another day.
Here's the thing. I always wanted to get a confession, okay? And I was I always say this, I was never the best investigator. I was never the best detective. There was hundreds of guys in my police department better than me, but I was the best interviewer. I was able to get confessions from people because people need a friend. When they're being accused of something, they need a friend, and I was always their friend. I'm not bragging about that at all, but being a cop, you always want to get the confession because then you feel you have the right guy. You know, there's no question this is our guy. He confessed to the crime. So I always wanted to get a confession no matter how much evidence I had.
Which is fine, which is what you should do. That
Right.
wasn't my question again, but again, it could be another topic for another day.
I actually want to talk about like what is the question, because I feel like we're answering, but like,
It was
but
just
I mean,
that
it could be- it's
situation, like
confusing.
I said.
Which part?
There was no incriminating statement, like I said. You know, a friend had talked to me about what happened with them. The police officer did not give them their Miranda rights. There were no incriminating statements, again. And
But did they get arrested?
what happened? So they were brought down to the police station. Okay, they were arrested. They had given them two options. I really can't remember what the first one was, but the second was to either, I can't remember the first one. But the second was, or they could go to trial. Basically, they're like, I really don't want to have anything to do with this. I'm leaving. I'm going home. So just like and then again, I just kind of wanted to go back to like the consequences, like of the police officer not, saying their Miranda rights. It had to have happened to someone somewhere.
There's no
Somewhere.
consequences other than losing the case. Like the police officer
Losing the case. Okay, there you go. Yeah. And that's why the person was let go. That's why the person. Okay.
Yeah, there's no consequence to the police officer if he forgot. If the police officer forgot, he's going to be in trouble with his work anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They're going to, it's just like any work, you're going to get written up, you're going to get disciplined, all of that stuff.
Okay.
Well, one thing I want to share as well is, which most people don't know is that if they come into the station and they share their information and they start basically stating that they committed a crime, and even Miranda, they can be let go, right? Even though they incriminated themselves and Miranda rights were read. And then later on, the officer could submit for a warrant of their arrest. It doesn't mean they have to get arrested right away. Maybe the officer detective is still working on a case and they could submit for a warrant, so they can be free to leave. Or if I say to you, Beja, I'm not going to arrest you if you don't mind coming down here, and then I read your Miranda rights and so on, and then you incriminate yourself and you be like, I killed the guy, right?
The point is, shut the up. Right? Sorry.
I mean,
kids.
the bottom line is this: it's real simple.
Don't say a
it's
word.
Real simple. You have the right to an attorney. It's very simple. You don't have to speak to the police. It's that simple.
There
and
you
even if you're
go.
a police officer, there are police officers that have been arrested falsely, false allegations, or different things. The bottom line is you have the right to an attorney. And so it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a police officer or a regular person, whoever the person may be, you have the right. And that the whole point about the Miranda rights and this anniversary is by having this extra Miranda, like the case itself put in place this extra verbiage and words that police officers all throughout the United States of America. Now, believe me, in Mexico, they're not reading Miranda warning. They're not basically telling people that you have extra rights. And it's not even saying that if you cannot afford a lawyer, that one will be appointed for you before any questions if you wish,
Right.
So we're fortunate that in this country that we're actually going above and beyond. And believe it or not, it's not like it affects the justice system that much. A lot of people in general will still tell the honest truth because they want to get it off their shoulders if they committed a crime. But the bottom line is, that's the whole point of having this anniversary, that Miranda rights, how do they protect you and where did it start? And this basically is an anniversary in regards to having, your civil liberties protected by extra verbiage being said to the police officers, that may be arresting you in general. So,
And if you can get an attorney, what number should they call?
well,
Because I know you get a free phone call in jail, don't
so,
you?
so we're fortunate again to work with Las Vegas Legal Network, which has several different criminal defense attorneys, which the
Right.
number is 1-844-LAWYERS, where anybody can call. And we have the legal network set up for free consultations and free strategy sessions to help people. So God forbid someone gets arrested or they need help or they want a free consultation to go over an unusual situation. A lot of people have false allegations, or they say, I'm going to call the police. I'm going to notify them, and I think at that point in time, it's when you need to speak with an attorney, at least to get a consultation to see whether or not they need an attorney or what to do. Because
Or if you accidentally incriminated yourself.
the bottom line is there's nothing wrong with having an attorney. And I think that's the biggest
Not
thing
at
is,
all, yeah.
I think people think it's a stigma like, oh, like you're automatically guilty if you get an attorney. And Danny, I think you would agree with that, right? That you're not guilty if you have an attorney.
No, I think you're smart if you get an attorney.
Right.
I think you're smart. Definitely.
All right. So anything else in regards to Miranda rights? Look, it's a confusing topic when you deal with the police. It just happens to be a good time to bring it up just because it's the anniversary come Monday. And like I said, I mean, for the last 56 years, this has been around. And I just think it's something that we should bring up to educate people as well. I think that the newer generation, doesn't have no clue about Miranda rights. They watch things on TV. They're not really aware about it in general. So I just think it's a good topic to bring up specifically this week in general.
Right.
Anything else? Oh, one last thing. Danny, share the last story if you don't mind. I know it's an unusual story, but the person that you read Miranda to that decided to admit that they committed a crime they didn't commit.
I want to hear this.
This is the total truth. And I think about this case all the time. And this kid is lucky I was a veteran cop and the other guy that I was with was a veteran cop. We had a burglary where they kicked in a back door and they went and they stole the safe out of this restaurant, like $5,000-$6,000 in cash. We got a footprint on the door and everything. We bring these 4 kids in and they blame this guy. And they're like, it was Jim. He was bragging about it. It was Jim. It was Jim. It was Jim. So these 4 kids tell us that it was Jim. So we go get Jim. We bring Jim in and we still have crime scene guys at the scene getting fingerprints, footprints. I bring this kid in. I read him his rights. And I'm like, Jim, this is what they said you did, blah, 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 blah. This kid was so sweet. He was so calm. And he's like, yes, officer, no, officer. And all of a sudden, he starts telling me this story. Yes, I took a ladder and I broke through the upstairs window and I came down and I didn't know where the money was. And then I saw a safe and he gives me this whole confession. Okay. And I'm thinking to myself, there was no window broken. They kicked in the door. So I leave him. I call the crime scene up again. I'm like, how did he break in again? They're like, Sarge, he kicked in the door. I'm like, oh my God. So I walk in. I said to the kid, are you confessing to a crime you didn't commit? I said exactly straight to him. And he said, yes. And I said, why are you doing this? And he said, I figured you'd let me go home. That's what he said. He said, if I confessed, I figured I could go home quicker. So yes, he confessed to a crime he didn't commit. And if I wasn't a veteran cop, that kid might have spent the day and night in jail. It's crazy. So if you guys remember Making a Murderer, where that juvenile kid and have you watched that on Netflix?
I saw a part of it. I didn't see the whole thing.
He seemed like the same type of kid that he was so nervous he just wanted to please the cops. I believe the adult in that committed the crime, but the juvenile, I don't know. Because I believe he was telling them cops what they wanted to hear because he was nervous. And that's how I had with this kid too. He's lucky I was there. He really was.
All right, so the goal with us is every single week talking about different problems in general and then coming up with different solutions. So again, the biggest thing is that we're making awareness in regards to Miranda rights. We're going to have these Miranda cards available. People can go to the problemsolver.vegas, which is our progressive web app. They could put in their name, phone, and email and basically request. We're giving out 3 cards that we'll mail to them. They're kind of like light blue metal cards. And this is something that they put in their wallet. And so that's one thing that we're doing for the anniversary, just to educate the public in general. We did a news release as well. We have the number 988 as well that we're trying to promote just to help people if they are feeling suicidal or they want to talk with someone. They can call 988, which we did on our cell phone. So whether it's a landline or a cell phone, you can call the number at any time, 24/7. And then I appreciate Chloe and Kyla, talking about, the children being home now and, being aware, secret codes, being aware to call the police, getting with your parents. Please educate your children while we have, kids that are home now or the summertime. I think this is a time that we need to educate our children, especially because they're going to be home a little bit more, and what to do if there's an emergency, if they hear anything in general. So again, I appreciate Chloe and Kyla joining us today and sharing that information. And maybe we could have other kids watch that video so they can learn as well.
Yes. Beautiful.
So I appreciate you guys for the week. Every single week, again, the Problem Solver Show is available. Again, the problemsolver.vegas is an app where it has tons of resources whatsoever. We're doing so many different things in the community. We're on TV all the time. We're on the news all the time in general, helping people. So again, every single week, Thursday, 4:30, that we're live as well, talking about these different topics. Tuesdays at 6 p.m., Channel 14, which is Cox Cable, we're on as well, talking about specific topics because we have limited more amount of time, about 21 minutes of talk time. So we're always talking about more specific topics. But again, I'm David Kohlmeier. This is Beja Rivera, and we appreciate you joining us. And we'll see you next week, and be safe.